Welcome to Cranky Commentaries. My name is Jack Del Mastro. As always, I'm joined by my very good friend Keaton Byer. Hello, Keaton.
Hello. How's it going?
Not too bad. What can you tell us about the movie we're doing today?
What can I tell you about it?
Yeah.
It's very, very silly movie, but also a very serious movie for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
For a bit.
For just a smidgen.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Do you want to go through the plot?
Yeah. So it's
Have we even introduced the film? I mean, the music is pretty clear, like what type of film it is.
I figured we were gonna get into that during this, but I guess we didn't. Anyway, the movie is 1996's Mars Attacks. This is a movie directed by Tim Burton. Music by Danny Elfman, as you probably heard.
Yeah.
Basically, the plot of this movie is as simple as it gets. I would say.
It couldn't be. Yeah, it's straightforward A to B.
Basically, Mars aliens attack Earth for seemingly no good reason. It never gets explained.
No.
Just because they feel like it, I guess.
Yeah, because that's what they do.
Yeah, they blow up a lot of buildings.
Yeah.
They vaporize Congress. They seem to be doing a lot in the States. Nobody else seems to get affected except for France, who also gets vaporized.
France, the whole world gets affected. There's that scene where they explode the Taj Mahal.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. But
they only really seem to show
they only seem to show what's going on in the United States.
The American carnage.
Yes. Anyway, so basically, Martians attack Earth for no good reason. They blow up a lot of shit, and then eventually, through sheer luck, basically a solution to defeating the Martians is developed, and just as quickly as they came, they are eliminated.
Yeah.
And there's a very hopeful moment at the end.
Very hopeful moment that's quite a bit similar to the end of The Phantom Menace, really, in a lot of ways.
Is it? I don't know.
The final scene? Yeah, it's exactly the same, really. Think about it. Natalie Portman putting medals around people's necks.
Yeah, it's superficially, I guess. There's some
very similar.
There.
Yeah, standing on like a stage in front of a watching nation as she awards medals. It's pretty similar. Anyway, so yeah, Mars Attacks. You said it was Tim Burton directed, also produced.
Yes.
The cast is an ensemble cast that is like.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in this movie. Actually, the interesting thing is like there's a lot of people like sort of early roles for them too.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of like people at the top of like it's kind of funny that way because it's like tons of people at the top of their game, and then a bunch of people who became, well, not really a bunch of people, but
a couple
people, like Jack Black.
Yeah,
and,
Jack Black specifically,
and Natalie Portman specifically. Yeah, those two who became quite big.
Yeah, like all I could think of that they shooting before this was like Leon the Professional, or Le Professional, I guess, which is a weird fucking movie.
Yeah, it was a weird movie.
But
like, yeah, so who's in it? You got Jack Nicholson, obviously, in a dual role, which is weird. We'll get into a bit more later. You've got Glenn Close, you got Pam Grier, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan, Danny DeVito, Martin Short, Sarah Jessica Parker, Michael J. Fox, Tom Jones.
Can't forget Tom Jones.
Natalie Portman, Jack Black. Sylvia Sidney as the grandmother. Who else? There's a few more people.
Just
but those
like
are the,
scroll
those
down the
are
IMDb page. It's a really long cast list.
Yeah, and I was just noticing that speaking of like people who would go on to like do stuff, like between the like in the first family, like the president the first lady and the first daughter.
Mm-hmm.
There's what was it? It was 22 Oscar nominations and 4 wins.
Wow. I assume
Between
none
the-
for this film.
No. Yeah, 0 for this film. I don't
Although
think this
Jack
film got-
Nicholson clearly deserves the Oscar.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Like that speech he gives at the end right before getting like killed.
Yeah, that's an amazing speech. What does he say? Like,
What?
We could be
Besides,
more
why can't we
powerful
all just
together.
get along? That's the
why can't we all just get along? Why can't we work together?
yeah, pretty classic stuff.
So, yeah, how much did it make? It was kind of a flop, as I understand.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it was expensive.
Yeah, well, we'll get into the budget a little bit later on. There was like, they definitely worked it down
Yeah.
from where they wanted it to be. Or so yeah, okay. So the budget ended up being $70 million, which is expensive, but
Yeah. Like I'm just thinking
honestly-
like all the people they had to pay. Like how much money do you think Jack Nicholson got paid
yeah, the that's
for 2
true.
roles?
For 2 roles, yeah, exactly. I don't know. How much more do you think he got paid extra for 2 roles?
I don't know. Do you have to? Probably not. I don't know. It
It's all about time, right? So if you didn't spend any-
I would ask for more money if you're gonna make me do 2 roles.
yeah.
But then like that's like twice the amount of like preparation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially if you're like, you know, as what's the word I'm looking for to describe Jack Nicholson?
It has as much clout as Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, well, yeah, but anyway. Yeah.
I don't know. What are you gonna
I don't know. It's just, he's a very intense actor.
Mhm.
But yeah, so the 70 million budget, they ended up making 101.4 million in the box office. So probably not as much as they would have wanted. At least they
No.
made profit.
No.
We've seen worse.
But yeah, what else is coming out in 1996 that it would have had to compete against?
A similar movie with a different vibe.
Independence Day?
Yeah.
Yeah. A very different vibe. I mean, they're almost the same movie, really.
Yeah, like exactly the same movie. But so when did Independence Day come out? Do you know exactly? Like what
the day?
the
I have it
release?
here.
Yeah,
with
what time of year?
June 25th, 1996. Oh, so that was the debut, but for general release was July 3rd, 1996. So it was the summer.
July 3rd. So it came out quite a couple months before Mars Attacks. Because Mars Attacks came out theatrically in the US on December 13th, 1996.
Right.
So
I don't
yeah,
know. Maybe people like saw it and they're like, I already fucking saw Independence Day. I don't need to see another fucking alien attack movie.
yeah.
Maybe they're like,
uh,
Independence Day was so fucking terrible. I don't know if I can see another one of those.
Yeah. And Tim Burton said it was like he like heard about Independence Day and was like, huh. Like he's like, yeah, well, I mean, basically what he said about it is what we just said. It's like, well, I mean, it's superficially similar, but it's not like it's the most complicated storyline. So
No, yeah, it's like
the tone is
I mean,
all
Independence
different.
Day has more nuance to the plot than this does.
Oh, come on. Are you really saying that? Think about it.
I mean, it's very small. Like
Yeah, it is more nuanced.
there's definitely some similarities there,
Yeah.
is what I would say.
Yeah.
So, as you said earlier, this was directed by Tim Burton. Do we want to talk about him a little bit?
Yeah, because we've touched on his career a bit, but I don't think we've done a Tim Burton movie.
No, I don't
Yet.
think we have. I like Tim Burton. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, he's got I like him, some of his stuff, not all of it, obviously, but
Yeah, I mean, he definitely like. I mean, I'm not going to say that Planet of the Apes was a good movie.
Oh no, terrible. I hate that movie.
It's terrible. Actually, he doesn't think it's a good movie. I seem to remember him saying like, I'd rather jump out a window than like direct a sequel to that movie or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, me too. I'd rather jump out a window than have him direct a sequel to that movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing is he has. You got to respect at least that he's like tried so many different things.
Yeah.
And he's like obviously super creative, and he works hard. And he's done a lot of stuff that I like. So
yeah, no, it's just like sometimes I get the sense that like Tim Burton lives in kind of like Tim Burton land. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course, yeah, exactly.
Which is like I guess a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
Yeah, it means that things like when his vision lines up with mine and I like it, it's awesome. And I'm living in Tim Burton land, and when I want to be there, it's great. But when it doesn't, it's not. It gets a bit much sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like later career Tim Burton has a tendency to get overindulged.
Exactly what I mean. Like, he's kind of living on his own planet.
Yeah, exactly. And people let him do that a lot. But in this movie, it's not an issue at all, I would say.
No, definitely not.
But yeah, Tim Burton, so his career starts out, he works as an animator for Disney, which I actually didn't know that.
It's kind of, you can definitely tell he has like an animation background.
Yeah, I don't know. I meant to link it here, but I don't think I did. But have you seen his first? Because he got hired from Disney, because of this short animation he did. That is quite funny.
I didn't actually see it.
I forget what it's called, but it's like this really creepy, like this like evil doctor is like doing these like weird tests on this woman. And it's like really dark, and then he like walks out, and it's like a dentist's waiting room, and he's like next patient, and it's pretty funny. Anyway, it's dark and it's very Tim Burton-y.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets hired somehow for Disney as an animator because it's like quite proficiently done, and he did it all by himself.
Yeah. So do we know like, is there any films that his work actually made it into?
I'm not sure, to be honest, but like he was there for like 4 years, so there must have been, and he was an animator and storyboard artist, so he must have done something, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure like what specifically.
Yeah, like I know on the Wikipedia article for Tim Burton it mentions like he like worked on a bunch of movies, and then it what are the movies that it says? But it says specifically like a lot of his concept artwork didn't actually get into anything that was released, but I don't know if any of his actual animation was. Right. Okay, so he worked as a concept artist on Fox and Hound, Tron, and The Black Cauldron, but it says his concept art never made it into the finished films.
Right. Understandable. If you've seen any of those movies.
I think the name of the animation you were talking about was Stalk of the Celery Monster.
Stalk of the Celery Monster. That's what I'm calling. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yes.
So then his next 2 films, he produces a film called Vincent, which is great if you've seen it. It's about a boy. It's about like a little boy who like imagines that he's Vincent Price.
Oh, so it's about Tim Burton.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, and it's narrated by Vincent Price as well. It's
oh yeah, how do you get that? I guess.
Well, it was made
Disney
for Disney
somehow.
It was made through Disney,
right?
And then so that's 1982, and then in 1984 he produces Frankenweenie. Which
so I did watch a little bit of this before we were going on here.
Frankenweenie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frankenweenie I believe is a classic. I think it's lived on in infamy.
Well, didn't he remake it as well?
Yeah. It got a feature-length film eventually.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yes. So, although from what I read, he got fired because of this movie. He got fired from Disney.
Yeah. It was a bit too far, because for those of you who don't know, I believe Frankenweenie's about like a boy whose dog gets run over, and then he like reanimates the dog.
Yeah.
Into like a zombie dog, like Frankenstein.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he got fired because apparently Disney thought he was wasting Disney resources on a film that would be too dark for children to enjoy.
Yeah, I don't know. The kind of vibe that I got is like, I feel like he probably, like, given that this movie actually went from like beginning to actually being made before they actually fired him or like shut it down, like it sounds like he maybe like pulled some things that were a little sketchy to get this done without actually telling his superiors what he was doing.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way. Like, because like, how could you make a full short film and then get fired for allocating resources incorrectly? I mean,
surely they would have figured this out before you actually did like casting or like anything.
Yeah, it totally implies that he like did it kind of under the table and like didn't tell anybody about it.
Yeah, which is like strange how nobody figured that out, because like he had to like hire actors and shit like that, and like
I don't know.
These are not just random people. Like he got Shelley Duvall to be in it, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, Disney did not like Frankenweenie.
I wonder why.
Yeah, but you know who did love Frankenweenie? Someone with a twisted mind.
Pee Wee Herman.
Paul Rubens.
Yeah.
Paul Rubens loved Frankenweenie. And at the time of Frankenweenie, Paul Rubens was also getting ready to make a feature-length film based on everyone's favorite character, Pee Wee Herman. So actually, this was Tim Burton's first feature-length film, and I didn't know that.
Yeah. Do we know what the budget was for? Oh, okay. Yeah. So the budget for I was just thinking, because like obviously it's kind of interesting that like, you know, obviously Pee-wee's Big Adventure is like, it doesn't seem like it was that expensive. So like I was wondering why they would give just him such a chance, but I guess it wasn't that expensive to do. $7 million budget.
Well, yeah, $7 million. Yeah, small budget.
Yeah. What was Paul Rubens doing with Pee Wee Herman before the movie?
I don't know. My Pee Wee timeline is not very good. I don't really know. I know he was doing like live shows for Second City, but I don't really know.
So, but this was the first screen adaptation of Pee Wee Herman?
I think so.
Because I know he also had like Pee Wee's Playhouse right afterwards.
Yeah, I think that was later.
Yeah.
Because there was 2 movies and then, anyway, I'm not 100% sure on the Pee Wee timeline, but
okay. Apparently, there was an HBO special before that, which I think is just him doing like a live show.
Right. This movie, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, is also specifically very important for the career of Tim Burton because it united him with Danny Elfman. Both Tim Burton and Paul Rubens were fans of Oingo Boingo, which we'll get into. We'll get into the relationship a bit more when we talk about Danny Elfman later on. But
okay, I actually haven't listened to a ton of Oingo Boingo, but you know.
Very little myself. I don't know. They're kind of like. We'll get into them a bit more later. But yeah, so they get Danny Elfman on board, who was a bit like unsure at the time about, because he had never done a feature-length film.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, given that that's like his whole thing now.
Yeah, exactly. So this was his first film, and he'd only done songwriting for Oingo Boingo before this. But they convinced him to do it, and that started their relationship. And basically, he's done the majority of Tim Burton films since then.
Are there any Tim Burton films that he didn't do?
I think there's 1 or 2.
Okay. I don't know. I guess he was busy.
And there was one period, like early on in their relationship, they had kind of a falling out.
Oh, did they? Okay.
And this actually, they were reunited on Mars Attacks.
Okay. I see. So he did come back.
Yeah, it was a very short falling out. It was like a couple years. I think they just said, Tim Burton said something like their relationship, they just needed like some breathing room because they had made like a bunch of projects like really close together.
Anyway. And I imagine Tim Burton's probably not always the most flexible guy.
No, nor I imagine is Danny Elfman. If you've
No, yeah, I'm sure.
and they're both obviously like weirdos.
Yeah.
If you've ever spent any time on Danny Elfman's social media, it's an
I have
interesting
not.
place. It's an interesting place.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Jose level, is it?
Oh no, not at all. It's professional.
Okay, I see.
Like he's a sane person. I haven't seen Beetlejuice in years, but
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's definitely a Tim Burton classic.
Definitely Tim Burton classic, yeah.
But what I have seen recently, and what is also a Tim Burton classic, is not my. Is that his first film with Johnny Depp?
It must be. Like I can't think of one.
Edward Scissorhands is the movie I'm talking about.
Edward Scissorhands, yes. I would say that is like probably like the defining Tim Burton movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What year was that? That was very early 90s.
I think it's like 1990 or something like that. I don't. Let me double check.
Yeah.
Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
Did you see the Super Bowl ad?
Yeah, I did. I did see that. What was he selling?
I can't remember. Was it insurance?
Probably.
Sounds. Yeah, I was correct. December 6th, 1990.
1990. Yeah.
It's got all the elements.
Yeah, it does. And Johnny Depp is even made up to look a bit like Tim Burton.
Yes, definitely. Was that? I guess that was on purpose.
I don't know. I don't know if it was intentional, but as soon as you like look at it, it's like, oh yeah, of course. Like if you look at a picture of Tim Burton from that time period, he looks exactly like Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
Little less pale maybe, but
just slightly.
Yeah. But then and then you get your Batman period.
Yeah, classics.
Which is like he's definitely got some of the most controversial Batmen out there.
Does he?
I think people either
What about
hate
the one with George Clooney? What about Joel Schumacher's Batman?
No, that's a good point. So I said some of the. I didn't say the.
I don't know. I feel like those are like, some of the best Batman film adaptations. I mean, I am 100% like totally snubbing another movie which we shall not mention the name of.
Yeah, for all those, I think
come at me.
For those of you who don't know, Jake has a huge issue with the Nolan trilogy, but we won't get into that now because we'll probably eventually do a whole 8-episode series on that.
Do we actually do I actually have to watch that movie again?
Yeah, fuck yeah, we'll do that again, but maybe a time. We'll wait till everything else needs to be going perfectly.
Yeah, that could be a while.
So Tim Burton does his Batman, which we won't get into too much because this is not the Batman episode.
It is not.
So finally, in 1994, he does the little-known film, also starring Johnny Depp, Ed Wood. Have you ever seen that movie?
I have. Is it little known?
I think it's fairly little known. Like
Didn't it win like an Academy Award?
Well, it was in terms of, I mean, audience wise, it may have been critically acclaimed, but it was a flop, and it's never talked about as a Tim Burton film.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very Tim Burton-y Tim Burton film.
I saw it once years ago.
It's pretty good, I think.
Well, do you want to describe it a bit, because it's pretty relevant to his subsequent film?
Yeah, so it won 2 Academy Awards.
What for?
Best Supporting Actor for Martin Landau.
Oh, okay.
And Best Makeup for Rick Baker.
Oh, yes, Rick Baker.
Rick Baker, who has been mentioned on the podcast before.
Yeah, a couple times, I think.
Yeah, so Ed Wood is a fictional biography of the 1950s B-movie director, well, D-movie director, I would guess, Ed Wood. So Ed Wood was like a director in the 1950s who made like some of the worst movies of all time, such as Plan 9 from Outer Space. And the film, and anyway, so like they were really, really cheap movies, and like
lowest possible budget schlock films.
Yeah, and he was also a very strange man himself. But so I guess Tim Burton was a really big fan of Ed Wood.
Yep.
And decided to sort of celebrate his films, which is because like they'd been ridiculed in the past.
Yeah. So he wanted to do a bit of an homage.
Exactly. So he did, and it was actually a lot of detail went into the film, like trying to replicate all the crappiness.
Huh.
Yeah.
I gotta rewatch it because like I said, I haven't seen it in years, and
it's a very lot of attention to detail with the badness.
I enjoy that, and it's got Johnny Depp.
Yes, it does. Johnny Depp as
Ed Wood.
Ed Wood.
But yeah, that brings us up to date now about not to date, but
that brings us up to the film.
Yeah. To 1996 and Mars Attacks. So Mars Attacks is not an original concept.
Yeah, so I didn't actually know this until watching this movie this time.
Yeah, me too.
Like when I saw the opening thing, and it's like based on the Topps trading cards or whatever in the intro. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I thought this was something Tim Burton made up.
Nope. This
movie
is based on a series of trading cards under the same name, Mars Attacks, from 1962. Produced by a bubblegum and toy company called Topps. That's obviously bizarre.
Yeah, like it's not something that you would like see these cards and be like, I want to turn that into a film.
Well, like what are movies based off of trading cards? Come on, it's always the other way around. First of all,
what
content?
What
trading
about Yu-Gi-Oh?
Didn't the show come first?
No, I think it was the cards came first.
Oh, really? Because I was going to use that.
I'm not an expert on that. Don't quote me. But let me.
Because that's what's going to be an example I was going to use of like, because of content that's based on cards, but
oh, I could be wrong.
Well, there is actually a Wikipedia list of movies based on toys.
Yeah, there have been. So okay, I'm completely fucking wrong. No, it was the manga came first.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know when the TV show happened, and I assume that there was a Yu-Gi-Oh movie. I don't know. There probably wasn't there?
Probably.
Oh yeah,
maybe not. Yeah,
there were 4 Yu-Gi-Oh movies, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is not the first film to be based off of a trading card game. There are tons of films based off of toys, but I could only find one other trading card movie.
Yeah.
And it's actually also another Topps trading card game that you may or may not be familiar with.
I looked it up actually before this. I have not seen the film, but it looks terrible.
It's horrifying. The film itself is horrifying. Are you familiar with the trading cards, the Garbage Pail Kids?
I'm not actually, but would you like to fill us in?
I'm not all that familiar. They were very popular in the 80s. They were a satire of the Cabbage Patch Kids. They're like the Mad Magazine version, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just gross little gremlins. I think it's gross out humor, essentially. Is the goal. But Anyway, in 1987, they made a film based off of these disgusting trading cards, and the film is fucking horrible.
Yeah. He said it was actually financed by the company, right?
Yeah.
Like Topps actually.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Topps somehow thought this was a good idea to make their own movie. It was a small. I don't know if they entirely financed it, but this was their idea. Topps. So it only cost them $1 million, and it made 1.6 million. So it was a very small thing.
Yeah.
I think the most alarming thing, you all should look it up, everybody listening, because it's hard to get across without visual aids.
Yeah, just looking at the makeup, or I guess, is it makeup or are they like puppets?
They're puppets. They're like animatronic puppets.
Oh, God.
You really have to see them in action to fully understand how horrifying
it doesn't look good.
It is. Yeah. Like, you have to look it up on YouTube. Just Garbage Pail Kids movie. Just take a moment. Unless you have, like, a weak stomach. Like, because it is just... they're gross little horrible creatures. Anyway.
Yeah.
Particularly horribly, in 2012, Michael Eisner decided, everybody's favorite former Disney boss. Anyway, in 2012, Michael Eisner decided to reboot the Garbage Pail Kids. He was going to make a reboot film.
Was he going to get Tim Burton to direct it?
I hope so. I mean, that's a horrible idea regardless. There's no way. 2012,
maybe they just didn't have the right director the first time.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know who directed the first film. Probably nobody.
Probably nobody we've ever heard of.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Topps made in 1962 they made Mars Attacks, and they also made an accompanying series called Dinosaurs Attack, which is also pretty fun. So the trading cards. Let's talk about the trading cards a little bit. They're an illustrated series of trading cards, 55 cards in total. And they tell a story of an alien invasion, 1 through 55. Do you want to read the little synopsis that one of the cards has here? We've got one of the cards. Well,
yeah, sure.
A physical card, but...
Planning to conquer the Earth, Mars sends saucers through space carrying deadly weapons. Burning cities, the Martians destroy much of the Earth's population. The enemy enlarges insects over 500 times their normal size and releases them on the helpless planet. People go into hiding, knowing that death is the consequence if they are discovered by the creatures. Despite its losses, Earth launches a counterattack that shatters the Martians on their home planet Mars.
So, obviously, pretty different.
Yeah, pretty different, but also kind of the same.
Well, as Tim Burton fucking said, it's not the most complicated of...
Yeah, it's just like, you got Martians. The Martians look really similar.
Yeah, that's basically it. Their outfits are kind of similar, I guess, and their heads are kind of similar.
But yeah, I mean, it's a similar kind of vibe. Like, you can definitely, like, the whole aesthetic is similar. But, like, once again, it's not like there's a lot of plot in the trading card game.
Yeah, it's a
trading cards. They're not a trading card game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just want to be
so
clear.
The trading cards, they sold for 5 cents a pack initially, and Topps sold them under a subsidiary. I think it was called like Bubblegum Inc. or something.
Mm-hmm. So did you get Bubblegum with the cards?
I don't know. I think because Topps is a bubblegum company as well, so yeah. I think maybe it was like a bubblegum card thing. So you got 5 cents and you got your cards.
Yeah. It's actually funny a lot of times when people buy these cards now, I don't know about these ones in particular, but the ones that came with bubblegum, a lot of times, like, if you didn't open the cards in, like, whenever they were made, the cards are just completely ruined now because the bubblegum is, like, melted into the card.
Oh, that's hilarious. So you want them to be opened.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I'm not sure, but like, I don't know what people want. I don't know. Maybe they do want it to be destroyed by the bubble
collector, I suppose. Depends on the collector.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the requirements for trading these cards, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Um, so shortly after they were launched, they were pulled because they sparked some outrage amongst parents and authority figures because their violence and sexuality, quote unquote. Um, I mean, I saw a few cards with violence. Like I found a few pictures. If you can, you should find some pictures of these cards. Um, because they are fun to look at. I couldn't see all of them, but I didn't really see anything particularly overtly sexual. But
I mean, it was like the 60s, right?
Yeah, I guess early 1962. So
yeah.
Oh, there was some ankles.
Yeah, there's a different standard back then.
Yeah. So like quickly they tried to do some reprints. They like repainted 13 of the cards, but it was too late because the whole series got pulled from circulation.
So are these like super rare now? Super valuable?
I think the originals are fairly valuable. Yeah, because they were only in circulation very, very briefly in the Mars Attacks form, especially.
I'm just gonna quickly search on eBay Mars Attacks card.
Yeah.
Oh, these are not that expensive.
Oh, really?
I mean, they're expensive for cards.
How much?
Yeah, so like the original 1962 cards, like you can get. I mean, I should say, like, obviously this is super fucking expensive, but it's for a card, but it's like,
for a 5 cent
you can get these cards
card.
for like $60 each, like the original 1962 ones.
That's pretty expensive for a bubblegum card.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, do you know how much, like...
Oh, yeah, memorabilia, comic memorabilia, yeah, obviously. Nick Cage, what did he spend on Action Comics #1? Like $2 million or something? I don't know.
Okay, that's a whole different ballgame there.
Yeah, well, Action Comics #1.
Yeah, anyway.
Didn't what?
I was gonna talk about, like, his copy got stolen or something like that. It did, I think. I don't know if you ever got it back.
Poor Nick. Nick really got screwed over in a lot of ways.
Yeah, really. Let's not end up talking about Superman Lives, though, because
that's okay.
Because we already have Tim Burton in here.
Yeah.
Superman Lives.
Yeah.
If you don't know about Superman Lives, go look it up. It's an entertaining story.
So the series was pulled. Mars Attacks trading card series was pulled, but in 1984, Topps authorized a reprint of the cards, and they went into circulation. And a guy by the name of Alex Cox came across them in 1985. Do you know Alex Cox?
Do I? I don't know. The name sounds familiar.
He's a director for independent films in the like 70s and 80s. He did Repo Man.
Okay.
The like genetic opera film. What else did he do? He did a couple of other films. I don't think he ever like went full mainstream.
Yeah, actually I'm looking at his things. They all look very like very independent.
But he pitched the film to an idea for Mars Attacks to Orion and TriStar Films in 1985, and they seemed into it enough so that he wrote 4 drafts of the film, which I read one of the script. Well, not the whole script, obviously, but I read the intro scene for his second draft of the script, and it's very different. It starts off with like aliens killing off all the dinosaurs,
right,
and then dropping a bunch of white mice onto Earth to start the age of the mammals.
Okay.
So it's a bizarre.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say, like, I really got the sense watching this movie that this is like a very Tim Burton heavy influenced movie, you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
So it's like, obviously, I think that everything that was done before he showed up would have been pretty different.
Oh, yeah. Well, this first attempt, 1985 version, has nothing to do with Tim Burton or the version of Mars Attacks we know. It's totally unrelated. Because, the current one is Universal, I believe, right?
Warner Brothers.
Warner Bros. Yeah, so totally different. company, then yeah, he pitched it to. He pitched it to Orion and TriStar. But yeah, so he wrote this totally different version that has some different implications and different storylines altogether. But it ultimately got put into turnaround and was never made. But in 1994, Topps does a second reprint of the Mars Attacks trading cards. And there seems to be a theme here.
Oh, what? Like every time that there's a reprint, they start doing the movie again?
Yeah, as soon as there's a reprint, someone tries to make a movie of these cards.
I don't know. They're just that appealing. They immediately spark creativity in the minds of screenwriters.
Yeah. So, what do you think? If they do a reprint like next year, do you think there'll be a remake of of the film?
Do I think there will be a remake of the film? Very possibly. I don't know. Something about this film like doesn't seem like it would be made
now.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Elaborate.
No, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like it's too I don't know how to describe it, you know what I mean?
It's too sharp.
Yeah. It's very 90s.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's so aggressively 90s. And for a lot of different reasons, I think.
Yeah, for many reasons.
But yeah, we can get into more of that, I guess, a little bit when we're talking about our thoughts.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a long thoughts section.
Yeah, a long final thoughts.
Yeah.
But So the guy who finds these cards this time is a guy named Jonathan Gems, and he's an English guy. I believe he's a playwright, screenwriter guy who had done some work with Tim Burton. I believe he did a couple of weeks work on Ed Wood. Mm-hmm. And he also wrote a sequel that never got made for Beetlejuice.
Right, so he's familiar with Burton.
Yeah, I believe the sequel for Beetlejuice that he made was called Beetlejuice in Hawaii or something.
Oh God.
Yeah, so he brings the idea to Tim Burton, who likes their anarchistic spirit, he said.
Right.
Which is kind of, I think, a bit what you were getting at with.
Yeah. Like, I'm kind of surprised, like, you know, even then this movie got made with, not that it got made, but that it got made, like, by, like, Warner Brothers and shit.
Yeah, like, it seems super aggressive for a big budget movie in its messaging.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Tim Burton said in his book, Burton on... Well, it's not his book necessarily. It's kind of his book, Burton on Burton.
Why is it only kind of his book?
Well, because he didn't necessarily write it. He, like, was interviewed for it, right?
Yeah.
So it's his
words in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he says he was very disillusioned with the state of the government at the time, the American government.
Right. You can definitely see that.
Oh yeah.
That's very obvious.
Like, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole good part of this film, I think, is his sharp satirical take on everything. Like that's everything else. If you take that out of it, it's a pretty thin film. Like it's fun.
I think even with that, it's pretty thin.
Yeah, no, it's not like it's a particularly dense or thoughtful.
And I mean,
take.
It's kind of just a fun movie. I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why it got made. You know, then it got the budget just because it seemed like a fun movie.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get into that a bit more, as we said.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Gems, he writes a script based on Mars Attacks because he did bring both cards. He bought both trading cards, Mars Attacks and Dinosaurs Attack.
Right.
because he thought they would both be great movies. But Tim Burton was like, Dinosaurs Attack is definitely too much like Jurassic Park
Yeah, I guess.
to make into a movie.
Yeah.
So they went with Mars Attacks. So Gems gets a script written and brings it to Warner Bros., who estimates the cost of his script at $280 million.
Yeah. But yeah, like, definitely just looking at all the shit that happens in the movie, like, the movie that ended up getting made seems like it was expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I can only imagine what was in there, like, before that.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been a crazy movie if they got $260 million to do it. But
yeah, there is something that we'll talk about quite a bit later that I think cut down a lot of the cost.
Exactly. Yeah, we will get into that. I believe on part 2, but
yeah.
So this part gets kind of confusing, but I feel like the writing part is always like a confusing clusterfuck.
Yeah, there's all these different drafts and shit like that.
Exactly, and there's always like seems like competing. It seems like
narratives, like the different writers are like, no, well,
yeah,
I wrote it, really.
Yeah, and also like this is just my observation, but it seems like there's like often the people making the movies have like different writers that they back, sort of. So it's like each writer that's brought in is like somebody's guy, sort of. So it's like the producers like these guys and the director likes these guys. And it kind of
it's kind of weird, like, that film is like not really like many other mediums where basically it's usually not the work of like one writer. Like there's usually not like a
yeah, it's impossible to like credit. Like the credit is often barely half the story of like what happens.
Yeah. Although sometimes like, sometimes the writers are honest about what happens. I guess like with the Moneyball story, we got a pretty clear picture of how that turned out, right?
Yeah, and those guys are like legends, so I feel like they don't have as much like pride on the line, if you know what I mean. So
yeah, sure, I guess you're right. They're just like, yeah,
we can talk about it openly.
Yeah, he wrote it, and then I went in and I wrote more of it.
Yeah, exactly. But so essentially, what happens is Gems gets fired. The writing duo, who worked on Ed Wood, got hired.
Yes, so worked on Ed Wood, not with Ed Wood, right?
Yeah, they worked on Ed Wood. Yeah, sorry, yeah. I miswrote that in the outline.
Yeah.
They worked on the film Ed Wood, but then they were out quickly, and then ultimately, Jonathan Gems got writing credit and wrote like 14 treatments in the end. So I don't really know. It's kind of just a weird little aside that when the budget he got fired because his budget was too high, I think.
Right, and they're like, okay, we got to figure out. You got to bring on somebody who's gonna like be able to come up with a movie that we can actually make.
Yeah. And then eventually Gems was the guy who did that, and they brought the budget down to, what did we say, $70 million?
Yeah, but I don't think much of that has to do with Gems changing anything in the script.
No, there are other differences, but it's they did eventually get the green light with Gems' version.
Definitely.
But also Gems says that Tim Burton is like an uncredited writer.
Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious just watching the movie.
Yeah.
It's just very Tim Burton-y in every respect.
Yeah. Speaking of Tim Burton-y, it's like very dark and outside, cloudy, and like a lone bubble just floated past my window.
A bubble?
Yeah, like a singular, and I'm like on the 5th floor here. Like
it's a very creepy thing to happen.
Yeah, it's like dark out. I can just see like.
Does it seem like somebody's blowing bubbles?
It must be, but I just saw one. Anyway,
yeah.
He, true to form, apparently drew a lot of pictures during the writing process, and that was.
Yeah.
It seems his contribution to the writing process was mostly pictorial,
and
like describing images.
Right. Yeah, he's a very visual guy.
Yeah. Well, he was
Definitely.
an animator.
Sorry?
He was an animator.
But like you can also tell it, like, just like in the way that this movie was shot, that he, like, he's a very visual director.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously based on what everybody, Tim Burton's movies are visual movies. Like,
yeah,
they're all very visually captivating. But even aside from that, even if in a film where, like, besides the aliens, obviously the normal shots aren't like particular. They're normal life, everyday life shots, but they still kind of have this Tim Burton-y.
They still feel like off kilter.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, a lot of that has to do with, like, literally just, like, the way it's shot, like, where he put the camera, like, what lens is on it and everything like that.
Exactly. It does feel very tight a lot of the time, but I also feel like this is kind of a thing with 90s movies. They all have this, it's something to do with, like, the colors and the angles.
I'm not
and,
sure what you mean, but...
I don't know. They all have this kind of, like, really almost...
I feel like there was definitely a look of, like, very saturated colors.
Yeah.
Especially in the late 90s.
Yeah, and that's huge in this film.
Yeah. Which is interesting because, like, a lot of other Tim Burton movies are much less like that.
Well, it's not necessarily that they're desaturated. They're always heavily saturated. It's just that the only colors in them are the only shades in them are black and white.
Like, I'm thinking of, like, Edward Scissorhands, right? Like,
yeah, it's all black and white.
Sorry?
It's all black and white.
Yeah. Everything in the movie's black and white, not the movie's black and white.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a very saturated film. It's just there's no colors.
Having no colors by very definition means the colors aren't saturated.
No, but the colors are there. The point is like...
Something that is black and white has zero saturation.
But my point is it's not... There's no colors. The film itself is highly saturated. What they're shooting is not very colorful, is my point.
Yes. So you're saying it has a lot of contrast?
No, because I'm saying there are colors in it. Like, there's a Christmas tree, and when the Christmas tree's on in the shot, it's highly saturated.
Right. Okay, I'll have to look back at the movie, but yeah. I just weren't sure if you were correctly understanding the meaning of the word saturation there.
I correctly understand the meaning of the word. You misunderstood my point, sir.
Right. Anyway,
what were we talking about?
We were talking about the look of the film.
Yeah. It's very saturated.
Yeah, it's very, very saturated. But yeah, like, definitely there's a lot of movies in the 90s that kind of look like this.
Yeah. In terms of, like, how it looked, I think they did draw a lot of inspiration from the cards, because they said they, like, went through the cards and kind of picked out the ones that they liked.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was, like, burning cattle.
Yeah.
So
that's very early in the film. Is that the first shot of the film?
It's the first scene, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like, very early on in the movie, they have the burning cattle, which really sets the tone, I would say.
Yeah, that whole first scene, I think, gets you ready for the kind of movie you're going to be watching.
Yeah.
Just absurd.
Exactly.
So yeah, obviously it was massively influenced by the 50s schlock films, because that's what they got it from the 1962 Mars Attacks card game. They were really trying to
yeah, definitely like a
that.
50s B-movie vibe.
Yeah.
But, like, with competent camera work and everything.
Yeah, exactly. With a budget.
Yeah.
Which is so funny to me. Like, they're, like, recreating these, like, schlock films on a budget. It's like, no, that was the whole point. That's the reason they're like that. Is...
I think that there's value in, like looking at these films and saying, like, okay, these are bad because this, and this, because they had no money and etc., right?
Yeah.
But it's like, maybe that there are elements in these movies that are creative that we can extract from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Of course. And that's why they influence so many people, is because there is so much creativity in there. It's just
like, behind a layer of just crap.
Yeah. Which is why the good ones really show through, because it has to fight through the crap.
Exactly.
So I guess that kind of gets us to the casting point, because it's when they sort of decided that they wanted like an ensemble cast. And there's a great quote from Burton on Burton, where Tim Burton's talking about like why he kind of decided he wanted an ensemble cast. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, sure. He says, I've always liked those Irwin Allen films, those celebrities getting killed movies. That's a genre in itself, where you have Charlton Heston married to Ava Gardner and his father is Lorne Greene, who's 3 years younger than his daughter, Ava Gardner. You get all these weird mixes of those people in those movies. So that was one aspect of it, yeah. I don't think there was a overriding thematic thing, but it seemed like a good idea to just blow away celebrities with ray guns. Okay, yeah, that's a pretty apt description of like what so much of this movie is.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I'll just get you to read that like second quote a little further down from him, because it actually they go together really well, I think.
Yeah. So he says, I sort of sectioned off the casting into two different kinds of people. People who I like, and then the people who represented certain aspects of culture and society that were more satirical. And it was fun. So I think the implicit thing in there is that like there's people who I like, and then there's people who get vaporized.
Yeah, I think sort of is the implication a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it does kind of like he does kind of like contradict himself a little bit. In the sense that he says like there's no overriding thematic thing, but then he also says he was trying to get satirical representations of culture and society. So there is
I don't know. It
there.
I just get the sense that like Tim Burton was just really bitter.
Yeah, that is the vibe. There's so much anger in this movie, like political rage.
Yeah.
And like American rage in this movie, like
yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that. It's a very American movie.
Yeah, but it's like it's anti-American.
Yeah, but it's also so American.
It's anti-American from an American perspective.
Yeah,
I'm not amazing at picking apart films in this way, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that there's the problem with doing that often comes down to like, I don't know if Tim Burton really thought that deeply about it.
Yeah.
He gets
yeah, there's just
it's like
you said.
I think he was clearly very bitter, and it just comes across really strongly.
It's just a series of jabs rather than
a
thought out philosophical statement.
That's what I would say. I don't know. Maybe Tim has different opinions on that. In which case, he's welcome to come on the show and talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. He's invited to share his opinions on that.
Yeah.
So we mentioned there are tons of people in this movie, so we don't really have time to talk about how all of them got cast, but
well, we can talk about some of them though.
Yeah, like the lead role.
Roles.
Sorry, yeah, dual roles.
Yeah, because it's like I wouldn't actually say that necessarily either one of them is the lead role.
No,
but
exactly.
Together they are like Jack Nicholson is who we're talking about here. He's clearly the star of the movie.
Yes. And it might even be based on charisma alone, but
well, he just fills the screen when he's on screen. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And this isn't the first time he was working with him, is it?
Is it? What was the first one?
The Joker.
Oh yeah, I'm a fucking idiot. Yeah, obviously.
Jack Nicholson was the Joker in Batman.
Yes.
In the Batman.
Yes, he was.
Tim Burton Batman universe. So they had worked together. And it seems like Tim Burton loves Jack Nicholson.
I mean, obvious. Like, yeah. He's so like up. Sorry, he just seems like somebody who would get along with Tim Burton. Like,
yeah,
they very much have a similar vibe.
Yes. Like in Burton on Burton, he talks about how Jack Nicholson just like gets him.
Yeah.
And they have like the same view of show business.
Yeah, I don't know. I get the sense that like Jack Nicholson is like just a really good people person. Like I feel like everybody who talks to him like says good things about him, like that everybody likes him.
Yeah, I get the feeling he's very difficult to work with. Like I feel like not
that's
all
true.
directors would have the same opinion as Tim Burton, but I feel like on
definitely.
like a personal level, I feel like everybody loves him.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Tim Burton was like seemingly desperate to get Jack Nicholson into the movie, so he just like kept offering him roles. He was like, yeah, play the president. Yeah, play apparently he offered him basically every role in the film.
I assume the Martians were offered him as well.
I hope so.
Yeah. The cows.
And he said, apparently, he eventually said was like...
Jack was just like, well, why not all of them?
And so they did.
Yeah.
And
two of them. I assume it would have been impossible for him to do as many as they probably wanted to do.
Yeah. So
just like there's not enough time in the day.
So let's talk about this for a second, because it's a weird choice for any movie.
What, to have a character playing more than one?
Yeah.
Well, I would just say that it's very. Did we already talk about? Oh no, that's a little bit later. But anyway, like I think it's very clear that, and there's actually a lot of similarities between this movie and Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah,
is like I think it's clear that like Tim Burton likes that movie, and like that's obviously an example of somebody playing multiple characters, including the president.
Yeah, that's true.
Like...
That is true. Like, I mean, there's like this film is a huge homage to that film in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
we'll go like, I mean, it's not a huge point later. We can just mention it now. Like, the whole war room at the end is basically like entirely.
Well, I feel like every
based
evil
off
villain lair, or I guess it's not really an evil villain lair, but like.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
It's a very like it's a very iconic looking room, and it's been ripped off a lot of times.
Yeah, and this is one of those times.
Exactly.
But yeah, the dual role is like, I feel like this is one of the few movies where it's not a bad idea.
Well, it just speaks to the silliness of the movie.
Yeah, it speaks to the silliness of the movie, and it like works with the satirical elements as well. Like it's just silly, but then also if you want to look at it, like, oh, you know, he's the president and the like
just fucking dumb like real estate developer.
Yeah, well, he's the representation of good and evil in society, or whatever, or not good and evil, but you know what I mean. Like
order
both ends
chaos.
of the.
I don't know.
Yeah, like selflessness and selfishness in the eyes of American people, but they're exactly
at the same time. Like, I don't know. It's just like the characterization of the president, I think, is really funny.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like the honest. That's why I said I'm bad at doing this. But
I mean, I don't think that's ever really been what this podcast is about. But like,
no, that's never been our focus. But let's just move on.
Yeah. So once again, we also get a couple other notable appearances in this movie.
Yeah, you got your like, God, it's such a long list. You've got my favorite appearance personally is Michael J. Fox.
Yeah,
I love his role in this movie. I think he's great.
It's really good. I don't know. I was gonna say Pierce Brosnan.
That's also a great role.
It's fucking hilarious.
He nails it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, fucking Tom Jones.
Yeah, but that's where.
Do you know how to fly a plane?
It gets really weird.
Oh, sorry. Do you know anybody who can fly a plane? Well, I could fly a plane or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, it's funny though. Speaking of what you were talking about with like the celebrities getting killed thing, It's Tom Jones survives.
Yeah, Tom Jones is like, yeah, I don't even know what that it really goes off the rails in that last 45 minutes in a lot of ways, I think. But
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think the last like 15 minutes of the movie are so good.
Yeah, totally. It kind of it reconvenes, I think, in the last 15 minutes.
Well, it kind of just like it gets it all out. Like it gets out everything it was trying to do with all the carnage and destruction, and it's like, okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna wrap it up now. Let's
yeah, as soon as it decides to wrap it up, like there's like it kind of falls apart, in my opinion, for like about 30 minutes. Between, like, it's not a bad falling apart because it's like action-packed alien carnage, as you say.
That's the point, though. That's the point that they were getting to. They were building up to that 30 minutes for the entire movie.
True.
Like,
it's true. That was the movie. Is that 30 minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, so there is more to the filming, but we will come back to it. I believe more in part 2.
Yes, we will.
But for now, we can move on to our final segment for today.
Okay.
Which is heavily related. There's a lot of
Well, there's some comparisons.
They're both science fiction.
Sorry, what? Okay, welcome once again to the section of the podcast called 6 Degrees of Star Trek, where we find the connections between the current film in question and Star Trek.
Hells
yeah. So
yeah.
this can be any form of Star Trek screen appearance. And we measure how many links there are in between this movie and Star Trek.
Hells yeah. This one is in like the perfect time range for Voyager.
It is actually in the perfect time range for Voyager. There may be some connections to Voyager, which might be mentioned.
Yes.
But I was just gonna say, like, so when you have a movie with just this many people in it,
yeah,
like you're gonna find some direct connections.
Yeah, seriously.
And in fact, we have 3. All of them are direct.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Let's see. Which one do I want to start with? Okay. So the first one that I will start with is Paul Winfield, or Winfield or Winfeld. I'm not quite sure. Okay. But anyway, in this film, he plays the general that goes to meet the Martian ambassador.
Yeah.
And so he gets vaporized, right?
Oh yeah, he's I think maybe
is he the first person to be vaporized?
First person to be vaporized, yeah.
But anyway, he was in Star Trek Wrath of Khan, and he also gets vaporized in that movie.
So sick. What a connection.
So if you've ever seen Wrath of Khan, there's this part where like Khan, like, so he's Captain Terrell in this film, Paul Winfield is. Yeah. And so there's this part where Khan like implants these like worm-like creatures into the brains of Chekhov and Captain Terrell.
Yeah.
And he can like control them.
Yeah.
And so he forces Captain Terrell to vaporize himself with his own phaser.
God.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah, brutal like record that he gets vaporized in this and in Star Trek.
Yeah, come on, dude. That doesn't bode well for your
and I also want to mention that he's in more Star Trek.
Oh, really? Cuz he looks for I knew I'd seen him somewhere. What else is he in?
So he's in the classic 1991 episode of The Next Generation, Darmok. Is he the guy in the costume?
I don't know, is he?
He is. So if you've never seen that episode, it's essentially Captain Picard ends up on this planet and he has to work together with this alien, but they don't speak the same language.
Oh yeah.
And they kind of have to like understand each other, but like this alien language essentially speaks only with references to other things. It's really confusing, but
yeah. So he's the creature.
He's the guy in the costume, so I don't know why you would have recognized him from that.
That's clearly not what I'm thinking about. But he's also in a lot of
things. Like he's a pretty he's been in he was in the Terminator.
Oh yeah.
So the next person we have is somebody who you may not have even realized is in this movie.
Okay.
And that is the absolute legend, Frank fucking Welker. Do you know who Frank Welker is?
Of course I know who Frank Welker is. He is the greatest actor of all time. I forgot to even mention him. I can't believe I forgot to mention him when I read the cast list earlier. God, I love Frank Welker.
Well, I mean, you can be forgiven because he's in so many movies.
Yeah, maybe like hundreds and hundreds of movies.
Yeah, so
his career, he spans since the 60s. He's been in stuff.
Yeah. So if you don't know who Frank Welker is, he is a voice actor.
Best known for playing Fred Jones in the original Scooby-Doo series.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say.
And every subsequent Scooby-Doo series.
Yep. He also played Megatron in Transformers.
Yep.
And he is sort of his thing that I guess he does in literally everything is, if you've ever heard like an animal sound effect, it's oftentimes Frank Welker making that with his mouth.
Yep, it's true. He makes a lot of weird noises. And he's in hundreds of movies is making weird noises.
So that is what he does in this movie. Because he plays many of the Martians.
He plays all the Martians.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's yeah. So I would suggest to anybody who does not know who Frank Welker is, look him up because he's got a very interesting career.
I believe, I don't know if it's true anymore, but for a while there, his like filmography was like the highest grossing of all time.
Not surprising, because he's been like, he was probably in like 10 seconds of like, you know, some of the biggest movies ever.
Yeah, exactly. He was probably the foghorn in Titanic.
Yeah, exactly. No, see, yeah, obviously you would imagine that if this is a guy who makes weird noises, he might have done something in Star Trek.
Yeah, right at home.
Exactly. So, the first connection I have is that he is in Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. He makes some screaming noises of adolescent Spock.
That's so sick.
Yeah, and also he makes the sounds of an alien creature in an episode of Star Trek Voyager.
Fuck yeah, he does. Which episode?
It is called Nothing Human. It is when an alien parasitically latches onto B'Elanna. The doctor calls up a Cardassian doctor for assistance, unaware that he's a war criminal and creating an ethical quandary.
Oh no.
Classic Star Trek with their ethical quandaries.
Seriously, that's a big theme. My sister sent me an excellent clip from Star Trek Voyager today. It's B'Elanna, and she's like, I forget who she's talking to. It's Tom Paris or something. And the line that she says is, "We have to get this cheese to sickbay. The doctor will be interested."
Cheese? What? What episode is that from?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm gonna have to find that out. Okay.
I'll ask him.
Yeah. So the final third connection that we have is this was actually a really small role in this film.
Right.
But it was Willie Garson. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a guy that's just been in like a million fucking TV shows in like the 90s.
Willie Garson.
Yeah. If you look at his face, you'll definitely recognize him.
I will look at his face.
But anyway, so in this film, he played, like, I guess he was Michael J. Fox's producer. It's not clear exactly what his role was, but he was on the phone when he gets called when he's like, oh, the president's going to make an address or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Did you find a picture of him?
Yeah.
You've seen him in something.
Yeah, definitely. He's in
So anyway, in an episode of Star Trek Voyager called 30 Days.
Oh, yeah, I know that episode.
Yeah, so he plays the fish man, or sorry, the aquatic guy.
And he plays the hell out of him.
Makeup, but you can still like recognize him through the makeup.
Yeah, he's still in it. There it is, right there. 30 Days. His name is Riga.
Yes, in that episode, his name is Riga.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's 6 Degrees of Star Trek for you. I don't think I have anything else.
But no, that's good.
Unless you wanted to make a comment on, I don't know, Voyager or Frank Welker.
No. I mean, I've said all I have to say.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that is our episode for this week. But we've got a lot more, so
it'll be coming back.
Yeah.
We'll have another episode for you next week. And let me just play us out here.
Woo.